One night I had a dream. I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life, and for each scene I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand. One belonged to me and one to my Lord. When the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that many times along my life's pathway, especially at the lowest and saddest moments, there was only one set of footprints. This troubled me, and I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said if I followed you in life, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the most difficult times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why. When I needed you the most, you would leave me. He whispered, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you.
Okay, just got to figure out how far to hold this mic from me. Um, where do I start? I've never done a testimony before, but I do share quite a lot about my life. So, I come from a really, really deprived area in England, one of the most deprived towns that there is in England, called Warsaw, just outside of Birmingham. And growing up, my mum's Irish, so she was a Catholic, and my dad come from Jamaica, he's Christian obviously, and growing up I was involved in church round the corner from where we lived. Went to Sunday school every week. Even got put in the church choir when I was younger, but I used to go to school and talk about it with my friends about what I'd been learning in Sunday school. And I think they used to laugh at me sometimes, and they used to laugh at me and, make fun of me because of me going to church and because me believing in God. So I started giving in to some peer pressure. That's when peer pressure started in, and that was from a young age. That was from a young age, man, and I started to turn my back on it and not go to Sunday school and, not go to the choir, not go to church, refuse to go actually. And from when I started doing that, my life just started going downhill, man. It was just the biggest hill ever, the biggest slope, downward slope ever. I turned my back on God, and I didn't want to know. I just wanted to run on self-will. I just wanted to do everything my own way. I didn't want to follow nothing, follow no rules, listen to anybody at all. And, not even my mum, not even my dad, my brothers and sisters, I wouldn't listen to nobody, and I started getting in trouble from a young age. Back in junior school, I was really good at maths, but that was the only thing I was good at in school. And when I used to go to school as well, I used to enjoy fighting. I used to enjoy getting hit and stuff like that. I don't know what it was, but it was like a challenge. I had to always be getting in trouble, always fighting, to the point where the teachers refused to let me come into the school, man. They refused to let me in unless I'd hand my shoes in the morning and wear pink fluffy slippers. And that's how it was for a long time. Also as well, I weren't allowed in lessons. I weren't allowed to sit in a classroom with every other kid. I was an outsider. And I used to have to sit in a corridor, freezing cold corridor, with my desk out there, man, because I was too disruptive. I wouldn't listen. And all this started from when I turned my back on the church and on God, because, I weren't doing things right, man. I just wasn't doing things right, but I didn't know that. And that's why I asked Daryl to read that Footprints in the Sand, because throughout my life I got a lot of rejection and always thought that I was by myself, but you're gonna, hopefully I'm gonna be able to say everything properly and you're here. The times when I thought God had given up on me, he really hadn't, and he was just carrying me through everything. So yeah, going on from that anyway, I started running off out of the house and everything from about 7 years old. I started running off all the time. I became uncontrollable for my mum. So I got shipped round all my brothers and sisters a lot, man. And I was always, my friends was all older than me. All my friends was like 4 or 5 years older than me, apart from my one friend, Ricky. And like, he was my best friend from our first day at school until he sadly lost his life. And then round about 10 years old now, man, and you know, I didn't know nothing else but trouble. Like, I was the kid who parents used to warn you not to go by. If you go by me, you're going to be grounded and you're not going out. You're not going to be allowed to do nothing. But yeah, around 10 years old, I started, all my older friends, they were smoking weed and drinking and doing God knows what else. And I felt pressured by them, and not to say no. So that was my trouble. I could never ever say no to nothing. I never knew how to say the word no. I was always had to be the first one to do it, or if I'd done it better than everybody else, or I'd done more than everybody else. And I used to think it was good. I really did used to think it was good, man, but it weren't. And yeah, I got into smoking weed and drinking and, you know, stealing even from about the age of 10 years old. And I was getting used, man. I was getting used by these older lads to do the things what them was too scared to do, but then them was always reaping the rewards from it. And I went on into secondary school, and yeah, that's when everything just, yeah, it's turned into a big mess. I used to ride motorbikes a lot, so there used to be a few of us, and we used to all have motorbikes, and we'd wag school, you know, we'd all meet up somewhere. And then it'd only take one of them saying, nah, let's not go to school, let's just go on the motorbikes all day instead, man. So then we'd have to go to whoever's house was the closest, sneak into the back garden, get one of our motorbikes, and then we'd go out for the day on the bike. And as soon as they'd run out of petrol, we'd start sniffing the fumes out of the petrol tank to get high. And yeah, and that just carried on, and then I was smoking weed and drinking. You see, the weed and the drink, that was just a gateway drugs for me, you know, because that feeling what I got when I got high, I loved it, and I thought there was nothing better, but, you know, God's always better than that. And started experimenting with different drugs, and as I got a little older, by the age of 12, I was stealing cars, doing burglaries. I was breaking into people's houses, man, and taking their stuff, what them had worked hard for. You know, we was doing robberies on the street, we was robbing other kids, and you know, it's just endless, man. It's just endless, but it's a lot of shame. And when I look back now, you know, I know that none of that weren't in God's plan for me. And like most of you here now today, when I got to your age, yeah, I was in prison. I'd probably done a few prison sentences. You know, I was 15 years old, and I was doing my first prison sentence at the age of 15. And then from 15 up until the age of 23, I never experienced a birthday outside of prison because I was always in prison on my birthday, Christmas, New Year. You know, and it wasn't like one big long sentence, it was different sentences. But I could never adjust to being outside on the street and, you know, just being a law-abiding citizen and being the person that God wants me to be, man. And prison didn't do me no good, because back in the day when you used to go to prison, because of me smoking weed, if you smoke weed in prison, Even tobacco in the young offender prison where I was in, you'd get extra time added onto your sentence, so you'd lose 2 weeks each time. And because I was always fighting in prison and smoking weed, and I'd get tested, and I'd get like a 12-month sentence, say, where I'm only meant to do 6 months and come out. But because of my behaviour in prison, I'd always end up doing the whole of the sentence. And I'd come out, and I remember I used to come out, and everybody was just carrying on with their lives. Everybody just carried on with their lives, and I used to think, and it used to upset me because I used to think everybody should have stopped what they was doing, like gone to bed, and then woke up on the day that I was coming out of prison. I thought they should have put their lives on hold for me. While I was in prison, I was 17 now this time. One of my cellmates, my padmate, man, like people you have to share the cell with, you got 2 people in a cell. He had to go out to the police station back in Warsaw for summer, and while he was there, he got his brother to smuggle him in some drugs. And he come back to the cell and said to me, just have some of this, man, and it's that peer pressure again. I couldn't say no. And he's like, come on, it's out of your system in a few days. You're not gonna get, you're not gonna get no extra time if you do this. And it was heroin. It was heroin, and I knew about heroin because I sold heroin when I was out of prison. But and I've seen what it done to people, and I always said that, I'm never gonna touch it. But what happened, man, I touched it, and then from I touched it, I couldn't stop touching it. I come out of prison as smackhead, basically, well, realistically, I come out of prison as smackhead, man. And, I never went back to anything else. I stopped smoking weed, I stopped drinking. All I was interested in was the heroin. It was just the heroin, and I would go out and I would do anything to get that heroin, because it had me, man. It controlled my life. It told me when I would be doing whatever I'd done in a day. It told me when I was doing it. If I needed to go to the toilet, the heroin told me I needed heroin to go to the toilet or to go to the shop or to do anything normal. Even just to talk to somebody, I had to have heroin in my system. And that was my life for a long, long time. And over 20 years. Over 20 years, man. And I think I had some valuable lessons while I was on that. And God was always speaking to me, even though I weren't hearing him. God was always speaking to me, that same time when I come out of prison on heroin, a few months after me coming out, so I come out of prison and I was ill. I was really ill, and it was like, I felt like I was constantly withdrawing. No matter how much heroin I smoked, I was still withdrawing, but this is a lesson I had to learn. And I'd started losing weight, man, and my partner was pregnant with my first son. He's 24 now as well, so this is a long time ago. I started losing weight. I was getting headaches, and I can't explain the pain. I really can't explain the pain, man. It was just something else. It was something else, but it was what the drugs had done to me. It was a consequence of me using so much drugs. And I was in and out of hospital. I was getting these nosebleeds where big blood clots was just dropping out of my nose. And when I say big blood clots, I mean you could catch them in your hand and they'd go around your hand. It's like catching a little bouncy ball or something that was massive. And I went to hospital. This went on for a few months, and then I went to hospital. And I remember hearing a nurse turn around and say, he's just a drug addict. And he's looking for us to give him some free drugs so that he can get high. And that weren't the case. I was in pain. I couldn't handle the pain, man. And I discharged myself from the hospital on that, and then I went to a crack house. And smoked some more drugs. I thought that was my medicine. I thought that's what I needed, when the only medicine what I needed was prayer. if I would have got prayer, I would have been okay. If I would have stayed close to God, that wouldn't have happened to me. But I went to this crack house and I collapsed. I collapsed in the crack house. I couldn't move any part of my body. I couldn't move any part of my body, man. And this is when God started making himself, like, showing me that he's there, and I can't deny him, you know. It took me a long time to accept it, but this is when he started showing himself where I can't deny it. There's a lot of taxi ranks in the area, and like this taxi what I caught to get to the crack house, my brother, I went back to the hospital, found some random phone number for a taxi rank, phoned it. It just so happened to be the same taxi rank that where I took the taxi from. And then he ordered a taxi. When the taxi turned up, he was going to threaten me. I don't know what he was going to do, but he was going to try and get him to find out where I got dropped. But it just so happened to be the same taxi driver who took me to this crack house. So the taxi drivers took him to, you know, that's only God can do that, man. The taxi drivers took my brother to this crack house, and my brother's coming, and I'm just collapsed on some bed or settee upstairs, and he's had to carry me out and put me in an ambulance, get me to the hospital, and got to the hospital. Remember, I'm 17 years old. I got to the hospital, I had a heart attack, man. And they rushed me down to scan me, found an abscess on my brain. Gave me 8 hours left to live. They gave me 8 hours left to live, you know. And if my brother never found me at that precise hour when he found me, that precise minute, in fact, you know, would I be sat here now, being able to give my testimony? I don't think so, you know. But then that's only God. Only God can do that, man. And they gave me 8 hours left to live. They had to get me to a different hospital right over the other side of Birmingham, operate, and the operation took something like 9.5 hours, man, and come round with... I remember when I woke up, I had my head was bandaged up, you know. I never knew what was going on. You know, I'm just a kid, man. I'm just a baby still, you know. And I had a bandage around my head. I can remember looking in the mirror, and all I could see was a big sign saying no bone flap, where for them to remove this abscess, they had to cut out the top of my skull. So like the top of my skull's not real at the moment. It's a metal plate. It's like the top part's metal, titanium. And you'd think it'd end there, man, but it just didn't. And at that same time as well, when I was in hospital, just before I had the heart attack, well, while I was at my brother, he just given his life to Jesus, and he got a lot of his friends, the woman he was married to now, a lot of family members was there, and they was just praying for some type of miracle to happen, that it wasn't my time, you know. They was just praying and asking God to do something else in my life, and God answered the prayers. And kept me there. And it was just hard, man. It's hard to talk about, but you know, I believe that brought my brother a lot closer to Jesus as well. And then in doing that, he brought me closer to Jesus, because I managed to see everything what Jesus was doing in my brother's life, and I wanted some of it. And I wasn't going to give up until I got some of it. And I was back in the hospital anyway when I woke up. You know, I got up to go to the toilet. No, at this point as well, I didn't mention, before I went into hospital, I'd had a stroke. You know, at the age of 17, I'd had a stroke as well. And I got up to go to the toilet, got up on my crutches, trying to get to the toilet, and my body just started shaking. And I couldn't stop it, and it was scary. I was struggling to breathe. It was scary, man, and it was like... I remember the nurse coming over to me. The nurse come over to me, laughing. She was actually laughing, you know. I was struggling to stand up, thinking, what's going on with me? The nurse come over to me, laughing, saying like you can't body pop while you're on crutches. She actually thought I was trying to body pop, man, but I wasn't. I was having an epileptic fit. And so now I'm epileptic as well. I have to have tablets every day for the rest of my life, man, because of me thinking drugs was cool to take. I come out of hospital anyway. When I come out, I had to go for 2 years without no skull in the top of my head, so my head looked like Frankenstein. And if I got upset or something, you could see my brain pumping. You could see my brain pump, like you could see the skin on my head lifting up and down. And I come out and it was like nothing had changed, man. I went back to drugs, I went back to crime, I went back to fighting even. I went back, and it weren't long before I was back in prison like that. Man. And it happened over and over again. And all this time, I wouldn't pray. I just would never pray. I didn't pray. In fact, I was resenting God. Thinking he's taking my brother away from me. I kind of fell out with my brother because he used to bring me weed up to the prison. And when he gave his life to Jesus, he stopped it. And I used to go mad at him saying, like, come, and you've joined a cult. And little did I know. Moving on from that anyway, like I said, I wouldn't pray. The only times when I think I prayed is if I was in a police cell or a court cell. And I was betting, no, come on, God, please, if you're real, let me get bail, man. Please don't let me go back to prison. Let me get bail. And, and it just never happened. It was always straight to jail. If I went to the police station, you wouldn't see me for a few months or maybe even longer because I'd go straight to prison. And, that's just, everything what I'd done was just stupid. Looking back on everything, it was just stupid, man. And then I got ill again. I used to sell drugs and I got ill to the point where I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what was up with me. I wouldn't let my mum phone the doctor. I wouldn't go to the hospital because he was taking time away from me smoking drugs and selling drugs, making money, man. And like I couldn't move. I couldn't move. If I moved my arm, I would be gasping for my breath, and it was because my lungs had started to fill up with fluid because I had pneumonia, and I never knew it. So like my lungs were filling up, and like if you know me, I struggle to breathe still now, just through that because I never went and got it checked out, And I should have lost my life then, man, and I never. But you know what, let me just say this is important to me. Just before that happened, I was in town selling drugs, and my best friend who I grew up with, man, this would be the last time that I'd really seen him. I'd heard people had told me that Ricky's got cancer, but I wouldn't believe him, man, because Ricky was like, to me, he was invincible, nothing bad could happen to him. And I was downtown selling drugs, and I spotted him, I seen him, and I started walking over to him, and then the closer and closer I got, I started realising, looking at him, and he wasn't Ricky stood there, man. He started losing his hair, his eyebrows was gone, obviously because of the chemotherapy and the cancer, but it was just a really sad time in my life to see him like that, because this was my boy, man, from we was our first day at school. This was more than my boy, my brother. And, I can remember just looking at him. I stopped so far in front of him, I couldn't walk no more. And I just started crying, man. And then he started crying. And then he started crying, man. He was just sad to see him like that. But then I ended up in hospital with his pneumonia, and he was down the corridor from me because he had a chest infection just after, because he beat the cancer, but then he caught a chest infection. And while he was down there, I never got a chance to go down to see him because I was too busy smoking drugs and I was too ill, and so I wouldn't have been able to go and see him anyway because it would have been dangerous for him. But while he was down there, he'd given his life to the Lord, and he'd written a letter, and he was just asked me to find Jesus, to turn my life around, and to just trust in God. You know, and it didn't make sense to me, man. At the time, it just didn't make sense to me because I was out there in the world and I wanted to do all them worldly things. I didn't want to, I just didn't want to conform to nothing. But, you know, that was, I believe that was from God, man. I believe that was God talking through him to me. I believe that was God talking through him to me and let me know that I'm not alone. I nearly lost my life again then when I was in hospital. The doctors, they called my whole family down, told my family that there's nothing else what they can do for me. They said there's nothing else what they can do for me and that I'm not going to last until the morning. That I'm going to, by the time it's morning, I'll be dead. And, you know, I can remember I just got a lot of prayer, man. My sisters, everybody was there. My sisters was having to change my bed sheets and everything because I was pooing the bed. I was pooing the bed. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was, you know, I was that ill. One of my close family friends who's a pastor, I just remember him staying there all night and just praying, man, some deep prayer. And I just remember him repeating these words, devil, I rebuke you. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I rebuke you away from Vini. You know, and the next day I woke up, man. I went to sleep that night believing I was going to die, believing I'd never wake up again. But I woke up, man, and it's like, things like that happened a lot, man. A lot of times where God stepped in, man, and I can't deny that. I really cannot deny that. I mean, further on down the line, I had, you know what as well, actually, around about the same time as that as well, I come out of hospital from that and I just went back to selling drugs and smoking drugs, you know, 'cause that's all I knew. And I'd given up, and my partner who I was with her for 14 years, and like she's the mother of my eldest son. She got murdered. She got murdered because of the lifestyle, what we led, the things what we was doing to other people, what we thought was okay, when really it wasn't. You know, she got murdered, man. She got pushed out of a car on the motorway, and she didn't deserve that. She 100% didn't deserve that, man. But you know, that's what happened, man. That's what happened because of the life what we was living. And a little after that, I went into rehab and got a first taste of living my life without any drugs. And started going to church when I was in the rehab, man. I'd done a lot of Bible study and, you know, formed my own little study group in the rehab. I remember him saying to me that, like, not many people do that. And the pastor, well, he was a vicar, because the only church what they'd take us to was a Catholic church. He used to come up to the rehabilitation centre and, like, have talks to me about where things God's leading us and everything. But then, before I knew it, I'd given up again, man. And I just went back out there doing the same old stuff again. But when I went out there, it was like, you know, I believe God was saying to me that He's there with me, but I need to learn some certain things. And I went back out there, and yeah, the drugs took a hold of me. They fully controlled me. You know, I started losing friends, lost my family through it, you know, and then, I became homeless. I became homeless many years after, and while I was homeless, I remember one time I was in the homeless shelter. I was in the homeless shelter, and when not just because I was homeless, but at this point in my life as well, I had given up all hope. There was nothing left, man. You know, I didn't even think to pray. You know, but there was nothing left. And then certain things started happening, man. Like, they wouldn't let me into a homeless shelter at first because of my reputation. And then when they finally did let me into the homeless shelter, the woman who was actually running it, she was a pastor. You know, I started getting prayer. You know, she started praying for me, started supporting me, and then a lot of different things started happening, man. I can remember I used to come out in the mornings, I used to come out of the homeless shelter and have to crawl across the path, man, to get to the other side of the road to do my drugs so that I could get up and walk. I would be being sick and like poo myself basically, man, nothing, you know, or I just had to get to the other side of the road and I just had to take them drugs, you know. And little did I know all I had to do was pray, and it would have all got taken away from me. And different things would happen, man. One time I was just sat on some steps. A woman's walked past, and then she's come over to me. She said, you know, something on my heart, something's told me to come over and talk to you. And then she started ministering to me and telling me about Jesus loves me. You know, she had me crying, man, and she got me food, you know, because I probably hadn't eaten for a week. So she got me some food and a drink and everything, and then said to me, if I go, have you got a Bible? I haven't got a Bible. All that I had, my only possession was a big bag what was full of dirty needles, what I used to inject myself with. And I said to her, nah, and I opened my bag as a joke, man. And look, that's everything what I've got. And she said, yeah, will you stay here if I go and I'll get you a Bible? And I said, yeah. And she went, and I stayed there, and she got me the Bible, man. But at these times, I was in the homeless shelter, and all that mattered to me was drugs, but she got me that Bible. I can remember when she gave it me, I can remember just kissing it. And I had tears coming down my face, man. And then things like this happened over and over again. You see, like when you're homeless, you have hundreds, and I mean hundreds of thousands of people walking past you, and none of them don't look down at you, you know, or if they do, they look down at you and they might as well spit at you the way that they look at you. And I can remember I used to sit there and I started praying at this point, and I used to pray, man. I'd pray for food, somebody'd bring me a sandwich, you know. I'd just pray and talk to God constantly at this point. And different things had happened, man. You know, a lot of people started stopping and ministering to me and basically giving me hope in people again, because I gave up all hope. I thought everybody was evil. Nobody wanted to know. Everybody wanted to see me dead. That's what I believe, man. And you know, I wasn't praying to die. I was praying. I don't even know what I was praying for, but I was just praying for something to happen, you know, like either use me or take me, basically. And yeah, that's what he done, man. He just showed me that he was there, showed me his love, you know, and showed me that he's real, just showed me that he's real, man. I started finding hope, and I think that was an important part, man. I started finding hope, and then I got out of the homeless shelter and I got into a hostel. And then I started getting all this support from every support worker what I got to show me unconditional love and support, man, which is something what I never experienced before. And I had a lot of support workers, man, and I ended up getting out of the hostel and into a flat, and yeah, things in my life, just little things in my life started changing from when I started praying and I started believing. All I had to do was just believe, man, and from when I did start believing, that's when things started changing. I ended up in hospital again because I was still smoking drugs, you know. I believed that to go to rehab to get clean. I believed that's the only way that I could get clean. I didn't believe in the power of God to get me clean. I believed it was rehab and the drugs are the key in the rehab to get clean. But I ended up in hospital again with sepsis, you know, and I should have died again. But God had another plan, you know. But only God had another plan, and only He could have healed me of all this. They found a blood clot on my lung. You know, not many people survived that, man. And then they found another one on my heart. You know, it's like, how the hell am I still here, man? That's God. That's just God, man. I come out after about 6 weeks and I fell asleep, actually. I fell asleep and I didn't wake up for about 3 or 4 days, maybe because of how ill I was. And then I come out after about 6 weeks and I still use drugs because I was a drug addict, and if you didn't use the drugs, you was violently sick. So it's like I'd trapped myself. I was in my own prison. And one day, I'd done some drugs. And I collapsed. I collapsed on the floor. I had a needle hanging out of my neck. I couldn't move. I thought I'd had another stroke. My mum walked in and she found me like that, man. I think you've all seen my mum, seen how old she is, and this is about 5 years ago that this happened. She found me on the floor with a needle hanging out my neck, and I was that scared because I'd found hope and things in my life was changing, but I was scared that I was going to lose everything. So about an hour later, I started being able to move my feet and move, and as soon as I could get up and had the strength to get up and move, that's what I'd done. And about an hour later, I had my mum crying now. I'd run in my bedroom, dropped on my knees, and I just called out to God, man, please, God, either use me as a vessel, God, use me to do your work, or just take my life, man, because I can't handle this no more. And I was in floods of tears. I didn't only say it, I screamed it out as loud as I could. I screamed it. You know, God heard me, man. God heard me because, you know, the next day, listen, this is after 20 odd years of injecting myself, having to have drugs how many times a day. I woke up the next day, yeah. I didn't have no craving to use no drugs. You know, I didn't have no obsession. You know, I didn't feel the need to use it. Didn't feel the need to use heroin. You know, I still smoked weed and drank for a little while. I'm not going to lie to you, but I didn't. It was the first time, you know, it was all new to me. I can remember just sitting down. I was thinking, like, what's going on? What is going on? You know, I had to take methadone. It's like methadone's a substitute what the doctors give you for heroin, so you don't get the withdrawals. I had to have that, but I believe that I didn't have to have that at the same time, and now I believe that I would have been okay without that I just took that because I was scared. And about 8 months, I think 8 months after, I went into rehab. And while I was there, I went into a rehab. So I hadn't, remember, this is 8 months later, I didn't do the drugs, I didn't do heroin or crack for 8 months, and that's the longest in my life that I didn't do it. And I went to rehab to try and get off the methadone. While I was there, my oldest brother, he died, got killed, and I left the rehab because I couldn't deal with the emotions. I didn't know where to put my feelings. You know, I started feeling everything because they was bringing me off the methadone. I started feeling things, just feelings, but I didn't know what there was because I hadn't felt them for so long, because I'd been numb from the drugs and all the drug use what I'd been doing. And it scared me. I left the rehab. That same day I left the rehab, I came to Bristol, I come to Portishead, and yeah, my life started changing, but then it stopped. I got to Portishead and everything started going bad again. I didn't go back to them drugs, but I started smoking weed again, and I carried on drinking, and that was another 8 months. That I was there. And then I stayed at Tony's. I stayed at Tony's for a week, and yeah, everything changed, man. I met the woman who I'm married to now, and it's going to be our first year wedding anniversary on Sunday, and that just shocks me because I never ever once dreamed that I'd get married. Never mind have any other kids or anything like that, but yeah, I stayed at Tony's and I started talking to Sam, and she told me that she's a Christian. Now, a long time ago, my family used to say to me, you need to find yourself a Christian woman, you're always going with the wrong women. And yes, Sam came into my life and she supported me to get me into some type of supported housing what could support me to help me to get clean from the drink and the weed. And that's what happened at first, man. And, the way that she went out of way, man, is like, how can somebody who doesn't know me do that? Make all these phone calls, take her own time out just to do this. And, it's only God who can put them things in place and make them things happen, because them things don't happen by chance. So I made a decision, she's got to stay a part of my life, and she's going to be a part of my life no matter what. I gave her some sweet talk and she fell in love with me. But yeah, she started coming to church, and she used to say, you got that missing piece, man. You're missing something. So I used to spend all my money on clothes, and I was still going out to raves. Even though I was clean, I was still doing a lot of things what I shouldn't have been doing. And she was saying, you're trying to fill that void, man. You need to surrender to Jesus. And we used to have these debates. And I used to say, listen, I need to do my recovery. I need to work my program properly and the best way that I can. And I started coming to church anyway, and then it wasn't long, man. I just made that decision. I just need to recommit to God. I need to recommit to God, because everything that's happening in my life, it's only God, man. I've beaten this illness, what I've suffered with for so long. I've been a drug addict for so long, and God's just carried me through all these things. When I thought I was by myself, God's just carrying me through all the time. And yeah, I gave my life to Jesus, because I'd done that a long time ago when Rico was still a baby. But what's the word? Recommitted myself to Jesus again, and I just never looked back, man. And I believe when you do something and you do it to the best of your ability, nobody's perfect. There was only Jesus who was perfect. None of us ain't perfect. We're gonna make the wrong decisions, we're gonna make the wrong moves, or we're gonna do the wrong things sometimes, man. We're not to beat ourselves up about it, because we're only human and we're just learning. Man. But yeah, since and it was at this church as well that I recommitted myself, man. Since walking through them doors, it's a lot of magic's happened in my life. And you know what the crazy thing is? I remember the first time that I came to this church. I can remember walking down. I was nervous. I can remember walking down, and everybody knew my name. Everybody already knew my name. I'd never seen none of these people before in my life, but everybody knew my name, and it just felt nice, man. It felt nice to be known. It felt nice to be welcomed, because when you come from the life where I come from, you was never welcomed anywhere. If you come somewhere, people would move. people would move because in my case, I stunk. I've got a bad leg through injecting. You know, it's still healing, but it's healing slowly, and it used to smell that bad. You know, you couldn't come by me because you'd be sick. But yeah, I surrendered to Jesus. That's the word I was looking for. I surrendered to Jesus, and I try and follow in his footsteps today. I try and do things how he would want me to do them. You know, like I said, I'm not perfect and I don't always get it right, and my head's a bit wild sometimes, you know, but I try my best, man. I try my best, and that's all I can do. That's all I can do, man. You know, since recommitting myself, my daughter's been born. You know, she got born perfect. After all them years of drug use, all the damage I've done to my body, how many different viruses, or God knows what, I've had. You know, my daughter come out and she's perfect, man. That's only God. That is only God, you know. I got married, like I said, I got married. It would be a year ago on Sunday that I got married in this church. You know, that's only God. You know, I got a loving church, man, where I can't wait to get here, you know, instead of, you know, like, before, it used to be the case of I couldn't wait for the weekend to come, or I couldn't wait for my payday to come so I can buy drugs or go out to some rave or nightclub or whatever. But now, it's like, I can't wait for Saturday night to come because I know it's Sunday the next day and I know I'm going to be in church worshipping God, what I love to do, man. Every day, you know what, every day, man, all I do in my house, we listen to a lot of worship music, you know, different types of worship music, whether it be reggae, hip-hop, drill, you know, we listen to a lot of different worship music, and it's like, you put anything on, any type of worship music on, you know, you see the kids start smiling, you hear Ronnie and Rocco, you hear them singing along to the words, man. You see Remy getting up, waving her hands about, dancing. You know, all them things, it's like amazing to me, but I think like the most important thing to me at the moment is that I'm available for my kids. You know, I'm available, and I'm available to help people. You know, like how Jesus walked around and Jesus helped people. So it's like, I'll never turn my back on nobody, and I will try and help you to the best of my ability, man. I'll go out my way for you. But, yeah, God just never left me, man. There's a lot more things I could have said, but yeah, I think I was a bit all over the place with that. But yeah, thank you all for listening anyway.